us. And so, but when we speak, that's where the power is, because we're made in his image. He spoke everything into existence. So.
Well, thank you, Lori. I just realized I haven't been recording tonight's call, and maybe that's just as well. I don't know. But I just clicked on the record button for the benefit of whatever few minutes we have left. Yes, Lori, your point about speaking, and speaking is not just words with the intonation of our voice, our vocal cords. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Where's the kingdom of heaven? It's within. So it doesn't actually have to be vocalized. But of course, you can't be in alignment with something if your voice is articulating thoughts that are in contradiction with what it is you imagine the truth to be about yourself. So in this, I'm talking about anything, everything. It seems impossible, I know, but this is the reality. Forget about what you believe to be true about possibility. It's possible that there's a better version of you waiting for you to catch up to it. That's altogether possible. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing right now. You wouldn't be investing the time you are this very minute if you were not working toward a better version of yourself, a better life experience for yourself and others. So you know, implicitly, it's implied in the fact that you're here, you are aware that there's a better version waiting to happen. You're investing in that better version. The trouble is, if we continue to invest the same way we have been, using the same mechanisms that have been taught and are tired, we're going to continue to get the same results. And they're not quantum leaping results. They are just simply marginal benefits, if at all, for a huge amount of effort. And the law is saying very clearly, the law of assumption is the path of least resistance, where you will attract into your sphere of influence and into your line of sight all circumstances that will be in harmony and alignment with what you focus your attention on, what you put your consciousness on, whether it's real or imagined. And if you're looking for a reality that you've not yet experienced, by default, it's imagined. So you've got to imagine that reality as though it is real already, accepting in the idea that in the field of possibility, everything is possible. And then there's this thing called probability. Some things are more probable than others. Well, everything is possible, but some things are more probable. What is it that creates probability from possibility? It's what we put our focus and attention on. And so we cannot contradict what it is that we want to create for ourselves. If it's a $10,000 payday on December 15th, write it down as if it already is December 15th. See yourself with that money landing in your account. If you have to, draw it on a piece of paper, take a snapshot of your bank account and fudge the numbers. I have a check on my mirror in my bathroom with a number on it, with the name of the CEO on it, with Nikan on it. So I've got my paycheck already written. And I see that every single day, every time I go to the bathroom, go to that mirror, I see it. What am I telling myself? This is what I'm telling myself every time I look at it. That is mine. What is mine is mine. That's what I'm telling myself. What is mine is mine. And why do I deserve it? Because I will have created all those things that make that real. And that's worthy, especially in this work. A big check in this work means you're making a big impact. You should be proud of that. So being proud of that check would be the emotion associated with it. Are you feeling proud? Or are you feeling desperate? Or are you feeling embarrassed or feeling ashamed? Those are emotions you're not allowed to have. You are not allowed to have those emotions because you are therefore disqualifying the assumption. So you see how this works? Start to become aware of what you're allowed to have and allowed to think in terms of thoughts and emotions. And if you're not allowed to have that thought or that feeling because it disqualifies the assumption, tell yourself, not allowed to have that thought, not allowed to have that feeling. I reject that. I don't think that. Gone. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Just be diligent and willful about what you entertain in your thoughts and your feelings. Don't contradict the assumption, but make the assumption. And it doesn't matter what it is. The power of the universe is infinite. It flows to and through you and will provide all the means necessary for you to be the conduit of that reality. I love one of the statements that my mentor used to say all the time. Spirit is always for expansion and fuller expression. I love that. Think about that. Spirit is always for expansion and fuller expression. Do you know that in science, and by the way, if you, over here, I've got a book by Lynn McTaggart. I've got a couple of books by Lynn McTaggart. One of them is called The Field. And in The Field, she first does her research in the scientific community. She shares with the scientific community these findings. This is where a lot of this information I've got came from. And did you know what she noticed? Was that in different parts of the world, unbeknownst to each other, scientific groups are working on the same thing and have made the same discoveries, but they don't know each other is doing this. So as a researcher, she found this and realized these guys are spending all this time in coming up with the same results and same conclusions. Maybe they should collaborate instead of bringing attention to this. But what was interesting about this, and this is historical, every great invention has always been shrouded in some cloudiness about who really invented it, who's really responsible, because there's one or more people who are actually doing the same work at the same time somewhere on the planet. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you spirit is for expansion and fuller expression. And it doesn't care who, is going to come out with it. It's providing the impetus, the energy for the manifestation of that thing to whomever is in better alignment with it. It will be manifest. But it's always looking to expand. It's always looking for multiple ways to get the thing into this consciousness, into this reality. So there is a version of you that's making $10,000 a month in Nikken. I think you should familiarize yourself with that person in every way, shape, or form you can possibly do. Because as you become more familiar with that person, what you're really doing is becoming more in alignment to being that person, to holding the space and the consciousness of that person. And it is for you to do. What is yours is yours. You don't have to apologize for it. It's simply yours. And there's so much more that it's so insignificant in the grand scheme of what there is anyways. You know, some people think, well, if I'm going to make more money, that means somebody's going to make less. In what reality is that true? They keep printing more money anyway, so it's an infinite supply. They just print on demand. And every year the supply goes up. End of story. Now we don't even have it in paper form anymore. It's just digits on a piece of paper or digits in your bank account on your computer. So get out of the idea that there's a limited supply. That's the first law of economics. That's lies. That's not even a truth. The first law of economics you will learn if you take economics of any kind is the law of supply and demand. And the first law is there's a limited supply. Do you understand that that's just a complete manipulation of the truth? There's no limited supply. Not of anything. Have we experienced it yet? No. So don't buy into that. People who buy into that are limited by the belief. So, yes, Carol.
I just want to say, too, what I'm experiencing. Well, first of all, I know it's true because I manifested God, and it was totally impossible. I just kept it, and it walked right into my life, and I would not have any way of knowing how that would happen. But the other thing that I'm noticing is it's little things, and to not diminish the little things that show, going to Italy, for instance. If I look at the circumstances and I focus on that, it's like this is not happening. But if I focus on imagining myself there, happening is little things keep popping up that have absolutely, I couldn't even imagine how that happened, and they do. So if I keep focusing on that, and it's a whole history that I'm having to say no to and focus on that, and it's not like this is easy, but it's simple and it's direct, and when I choose it, it just keeps happening. So I have no idea how it's all coming together, and I do have faith it's happening. This whole history that I have is slowly being transformed. And just calls like this, and the company that I experience in Nikken are and affirm those even tiny. It's true, I don't have to or know how. It's like if I just give it just a little bit of faith, it's amazing. So anyway, I would say it's true.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure everybody started a little bit because your words kind of broke down a little bit, but we got the gist of it all. And I think that everyone on this call has experienced this. I don't think this is a foreign subject to anyone here. I think in our own ways, we've all known this and have encountered this. We just don't make a habit of practicing it consciously. It's easy to dismiss as coincidence, or, well, it wasn't that big a deal, or it wasn't that, but maybe it was, because it's those little things, as you're saying, Carol, that you are acknowledging, you're recognizing right now that are direct consequences of this choice, this choosing of what you're going to think and feel, your alignment to whatever reality you want to experience, regardless of how possible, regardless, forget the word possible, because we know it's possible, regardless of how probable it appears at this time. I mean, if you really think of the breakthroughs that have happened on our world, technological breakthroughs of every kind, I don't think they came with ease, in the sense that I think a lot of them were surprises. I think a lot of people were somewhat pleasantly surprised all of a sudden when this thing hits them in the eyes, or right between the eyes, and something just happens, and they're like, "Whoa, what's that?" And so these breakthroughs are quantum in nature. They're quantum. And this is, I think, the distinction between what I'm talking about and maybe what you're going to learn elsewhere. You'll notice that Mike DiMuccio doesn't really tend to talk too much about the simple, practical, day-to-day, routine type stuff. But at the end of the day, I think it is. Because if you're not practicing those simple day-to-day routine things, operating at a certain consciousness will continue to produce the same results, no matter how many times you do it. So I don't believe in repetition unless you're repeating good habits, and those habits are proving to produce, with some degree of consistency, the kind of results that you're after. And I think that if you're going to experience a quantum leap in reality, a quantum leap in success in Nikken, and of course we're talking about your success in Nikken, but it's universal in principle, then that quantum thinking has to happen, that quantum experience. And everything that I have studied in my years of studying this and applying and operating with is faith-based. It's all working with the law. It's understanding that there is this law that if I'm in harmony with and alignment with on a conscious level, I can apply it consciously. It is always it's always at work. But for most people, it's at work on an unconscious level. And what they're creating is not what they desire, it's what they don't want. Most people think about what they don't want to experience. And worry, by definition, is a dress rehearsal for something you don't want to happen. So that's a lot of effort and a lot of energy in imagining a reality that you actually don't even want. How many people do that every single day? You've only got so many minutes on this planet. Why would you waste any of them on stuff like that? Why not just keep reinvesting and investing and reinvesting in the imagination of a reality that is desirable? Yes, Carol?
The other thing is, even if I don't believe it, it isn't going to hurt anything to do it anyway, to just, to just keep the assumption and just choose what and project what I want and what I feel will uplift humanity. I'm just thinking, like I keep telling people, like what's going on in politics, it isn't going to hurt anything to imagine people getting along and people caring for one another. It doesn't hurt to do that. So why not choose that and see what happens, whether you believe it or not? Just
what will happen is your experience.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the 7 billion other people's experience, but what will happen is your experience will be shifted.
Right, but if more and more people choose to do that, then
It'll
more
become
and
a
more
collective
people
experience.
have that experience. Yes.
It will become a collective experience, and you
Right.
know, I'm all for that. Nikin's all for that. Suzanne?
You were talking earlier about how it has to be, or it should be, the path of least resistance, and how we're different. We're the only ones that can make these choices. And I've had some really wild nature things happen the last day or two. Yesterday we had this incredibly huge flock of birds come in around our house. There had to have been about 300 to 400 of these gackles. They're black birds, and they were all around. It was just incredible. And the air has been so crisp, which is very unusual. You know, because you were up north, right?
Mm-hmm.
So today, what I was doing, I was outside and I was looking around, and I was realizing, when birds are flying in between the trees, they have faith that they know where they're going. They don't go, oh my gosh, watch out for this tree. I'm going to hit this tree. They just fly. And these birds in the backyard were just flying all over the place. They were doing it with such ease. To me, that was an example of how easy it can be, because they just fly all over. And they don't run into each other, they get where they want to go.
Don't worry.
Yeah. And then they squabble on the ground, but then they, all fly and move. So, there were so many incredible birds in my backyard. A separate set today, pileated woodpeckers and northern flickers. These are big, huge, woodpeckers and birds. And the air was so alive. And so that's why I was thinking about the ease of movement of birds in particular.
Yeah, that's a great example, because they, like I said, they don't worry, and they are somehow all aware of each other. They work together like fish, how quickly fish can change direction instantaneously all at the same time. So getting back to then our manifestation, 15, 10, whatever the number is, write yourself a check. Do it. Do the physical, because sometimes the physical helps us get more acquainted with the imagined. And that's why, by the way, it's always been encouraged to write your goals down. When you write your goals down, you're taking it from the imagined, the ethereal, and putting it into a physical form. And why we're always taught, write our goal. Our goal has to be a distinct thing, an outcome, and a date. There has to be a timeline. Now, I know I was reading the Mach 2 with Your Hair on Fire by Richard Brooke, and he does not necessarily encourage dates. When they're short term, he's okay with that, but long term, he doesn't really like putting dates. what I like is the honor before. And I guess the reason why he doesn't like the dates is because the second you put a date about a future reality, isn't that saying something about your current reality? And is that not, in fact, a contradiction? How can you be the I am somebody on some date in the future? So it's probably good advice if maybe the date wasn't even relevant. I want you to imagine it's December 15th. I want you to put yourself in that moment in time, because you know that time is right around the corner. And I want you to see it. I want you to experience it. I want you to live it as if it's already happened, as if it's in the rearview mirror. Because at some point it will be in the rearview mirror. So time is an illusion. I'm sure one day we're going to find out that we can move through time. It's already theoretically possible, by the way. So it's just a matter of making it probable versus possible. And so moving forward and backward in time is just simply like putting your needle on a record, forward and backward in the record. The record's already written. You're just putting it forward and backwards. So there's a version of you that's already written, that's already got that check. You just got to put the needle on that version and start hearing the music from that point forward. And then that's what you start to experience. You're going to hear voices. You're going to hear, I mean, like, I'm not thinking, well, yeah, you'll even hear yourself. Your self-talk will be different. You'll hear voices. You'll hear people talk different around you. You'll hear yourself say things different to people. All these things just start to happen. And let's see, I guess you've made the assumption we all know what a record is. How many of you don't know what a record is? On this call, we all know what a record is. My kids may not know what a record is, but so anyway, we've gone on quite a bit on this call, and I definitely said more than I was going to, but I would like it if you put this into practice and started to experience it for yourself. Just like Carol is, those little things. Pay attention to those little things, and you're going to start to see a sequence of events unfold, and you'll correlate it. You'll say, this just was not going to happen if I did not flip the switch on my focus, my thoughts, my energy. And there's something also that I think might be a bit of a fear that prevents people from going for this. You might be afraid of the person or the people around you when you make that reality. You know, what will my husband think? What will my wife think? What will my friends think? And so forth. And that could be, I've actually just experienced it this weekend, and not in my personal situation, in my business environment, but the idea of the crabs, the idea of the crabs, people holding people down. So I can choose to be part of that reality, be part of that little framework, or I can just say, it's too bad for them, but that's not me. That's just not how I live. And whether they get it or they don't get it is not my problem. So it's like no energy, requires no energy on my part to entertain them. So what if whoever you might be afraid of, or the circumstances around you that you might be afraid of will be changing? Yes, they will be changing. But what if they change for the better? I mean, I want you to just think about one possibility. If the new reality includes a happier life, that means whoever's in it and whatever's going on, you're happier. So, hey, let's go for it, like sooner than later, right? And I'm saying this because I had a conversation with my daughter, Sophia, at the Bob Proctor event in the end of June. And we were actually at dinner at Nobu, like big deal, fancy restaurant, Los Angeles kind of place, right? I think that's one of the big actors' places. Anyway, So we're having dinner there, and she is just panicking. She's in a state of panic because she's trying to understand this, what we had picked up on the day, and she's fighting with a reality that she's experiencing, and she doesn't know how to put the two together. She doesn't understand the connection between moving into the frame of mind of it's already done, therefore everything's already adjusted itself accordingly, to I have to change this and have to change that, because if I change this and I change that, then I can feel this way. She was into I have to change all these circumstances in my life in order to get. So she was reading the information incorrectly. She was thinking she had to make decisions to change the circumstances, which they would be big decisions. They would be upheaval. Versus you have to change what you're thinking and feeling. You have to move from this state of anxiety and panic into the state of peace and acknowledgement of the new reality. That's the change. That's the decision that has to be made, because all the rest will follow as a natural consequence of the law. When she finally got this, she changed as a human being. And I mean radically changed, to the point where you've heard me tell you she's writing a book. She's just not the same person. She doesn't have a care in the world in terms of worry. All the things that she was fighting with and frustrated by and ready to quit this and none of that, no conversation at all about any of that stuff. She went to work when she was working in summer, happy-go-lucky, a person who was like bored silly because they couldn't give her enough work. She was just too fast. To a person who just loved going to work and having fun and like this was a night and day shift, and all that changed. The only thing that changed was between the 6 inches between her ears. This is what this guy's talking about. And then the circumstances start to spin differently in your life. So, I don't know that I could talk to you guys about, do more ABCs. Pick up the phone and call more contacts. Those are things you're going to do anyway. You would naturally be that person and align with that reality if you were one with the truth that you are that person earning $10,000 a month. That would just become normal. Yeah? Okay, well, guys, sorry to be such a blast of talking, and I didn't get as much of you to talk back, but thank you for those of you who did jump in and interrupted me. Feel free to do that anytime, by the way, because I seem to not have a shortness to dialogue. My apologies if I go on and on. I just think this point is too important. It's just too important to miss. And it's so easy to dismiss as superficial or superfluous or not important or whatever. I just think that you will experience what I have experienced and what others have written about over the ages when you shift your focus, your attention, what you put your attention and time into and energy into, and make it as simple as possible. The simplest way is the assumption. Assume. And there's no distance between the current reality and the imagined reality, because you're now locking the two together into one. There's no time.
Mike?
Yeah.
This is something that I've encountered, and I think it might be critical when you say, what are you afraid of? But I've encountered with people, if you're wanting to just suggest maybe looking at a universe or a world where people actually support one another and uplift one another, and having a different reality than what we're complaining about. The fear is, oh no, if we do that, we're just going to be disappointed because it's never going to happen. And I think that is kind of an underlying thing that, you don't want to set yourself up to be disappointed. So the fear is disappointed. And I don't know, in terms of addressing that, but I do think that might be kind of significant as what's, happening.
Well, that's a really good point, by the way, the complacency that people have been subdued. We've been subdued to the point of complacency. This is it's a definite problem. I see it I see it mostly, by the way, in Native North Americans. I mean, I just had 2 weeks of wellness previews here in Toronto, Bo and I, and it was very obvious to me who was the life of the party. It was the invites by the Latinos. They were bubbly, interested, asking questions, animated, talking amongst themselves. It was just a completely different audience than those who were North American, don't believe anything, do a demo on them, and they're like, I don't know if you were pushing as hard and so forth. It's like, wow, man, who peed in your, Rice Krispies this morning? And it's just, it seems to be, and by the way, I'm starting to say stuff like that out loud. I'm not even holding that back anymore because it's like nothing's going to change for these people unless somebody makes them realize what they look and sound like. Because that's what they're so preoccupied with 90% of the time, is how they look and how they sound like to other people. Well, you just encountered somebody that's not like anybody else, boy. I'll tell you how you look and sound, like a bloody idiot. Who's thinking in that mind of yours? So wake up, man. Life doesn't have to be miserable. What if I did push as hard? What about that? So what are you going to do about it? Go back to your hole and crawl under the rock, or what? I mean, like, life is too short to be so complacent. And if you've taken the time to be in front of me and divine whatever has put you in my path, then you're going to get me. And I hope that somehow that doesn't rub you too hard the wrong way, but if anything, maybe something positive can come out of it. A little spark of life, even if it is anger. If it gets you thinking, man. And a lot of this, by the way, I picked up over the years when I was with Bob Proctor. I mean, I used to do it. I heard the way he talked with people, and he was not shy about things, and he'd be very direct and in your face. And so I started just doing it. I thought, well, if it works for him, let me try it. And sure enough, as much as I did it, I got the same kind of reactions he was getting. So I realized that was the key. The key was to be bold, direct, and not concern myself with being judged. That wasn't going to help me, and it wasn't going to help them. Right? And I'm going to wrap on this. There was a guy, there was a fellow by the name of Larry Prophet, who was a very good friend and mentor to many of us in ECAN over the years. And there was a goal training I remember him doing once upon a time, and the message that he was trying to convey to the leaders. He was walking around with his finger stuck in his nose, and he would talk to somebody, and he's got his finger in his nose. He would talk to him, whatever. And eventually somebody said, would you take your finger out of your nose? Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. The point he was trying to make is we're so politically correct that sometimes the obvious is not being said, and nobody benefits from it. Nobody benefits from the white elephant that we don't address. Nobody's benefiting from it. The person who's watching this guy doing that and doesn't say anything doesn't change their life. This person can't change their life and improve their situation because they don't even know they're doing it. And so nobody says anything in the name of political correctness. Nothing changes. No improvement made. Unless somebody comes along and says, why do you get your finger stuck in your nose? Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. And all of a sudden things can change for both of them, right? One's being honest and open, the other one's being made aware. So this is an important part of what we do, guys. Helping people become aware that their life may not be in balance, and that if they're open to a possible solution, we may just have something to talk about. So it does take that much confidence and openness and courage to make a difference in somebody else's life. Help them see they got their finger up their nose. Most people are walking around with their finger up their butt, never mind their nose. Help them get it out of their butt. Anyways, enough of that. So thanks for joining me. By the way, those of you, I don't know who you are on this call, who took advantage of the guest tickets for the summit, expect those guests to arrive because you made the decision. Expect it now. Don't even think twice about it. Just be anxious to see who they are and what they look like. Just know they are. That's the reality you chose. So guys, have yourselves a great night. Have yourselves a great week. And we'll see you soon. And we'll see you very soon in Toronto.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.